All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday, January 20th. We got a decent-sized NBA slate to jump into in today's video, like we always do. We're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the spread. We'll talk about the total. I'll give you my lean on any player props that we like. But as always, all of my final picks, if you do want to fade those picks and do the opposite, those plays are going to be in the pinned comment. Last night, kind of a, indifferent type night. We hit the over in the Magic and the Sixers game. We hit the under in the Pelicans and the Sun game. And then the two player props that we picked did not turn out well. The only one that I'm bummed about was Tobias Harris. The dude looked like he was absolutely on pace to cash this and then just slow down, but it is what it is. Again, a 2 and 2 night. I guess silver lining here, glass half full approach would be the two that we hit were the odds that we'd want to hit, the -110 and the -105. The juiced plays were the ones that didn't, but nonetheless, 2 and 2 night. Not going to write home about it, but we're not going to cry over it. Well, we can cry over, but with tears of joy is our ride of the day. Cashing Bam Adebayo under 34.5 points plus rebounds. Maybe got a little sweaty, depends on what you consider sweaty, but he finished with 30 points plus rebounds. So shout out to Jacob here for cashing this one. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, all you have to use is hashtag ride of the day in the comments. And I'm giving the person who I pick and ride with a shout out in the next video, win or loss. And I'm shouting them out over on my Twitter. Now, if you win, we keep riding with you. Jacob, we'll do it again. A nice little cha-ching for him. So we're going to be looking out for Jacob's comment today, and we'll be riding with his pick again. So make sure to keep an eye out on, you keep an eye out for that within the comments and over on, again, my Twitter/X, because we're riding with whatever Jacob throws out there today. Jacob, you got to do it in a reasonable time manner. We've had a couple people that have won, but then just never submitted another ride of the day. So that's when we jump on board with someone else. So get your hashtag ride of the days in the comments, guys. And yeah, we'll see what we got when we recap tomorrow. But let's go ahead and jump into today's slate here. We're starting off with a few games, honestly. Actually, there's a decent amount of games on today's slate that I'm like, yeah, not a great game, right? But we're starting off with one of those. We got the Pistons taking on the Bucks. Pistons at home here. They're getting 13.5 points. Total sitting at 244. Now, the Pistons just won recently, and, you don't expect them to win again. And they're playing the Bucks team who has had their ups and downs. I'm pretty sure I swore off of the Bucks, right? Like, I'm done with the Bucks now. So I guess I lean Pistons, but this isn't a game that we're going to be betting, right? It's almost like too few of points to trust with Detroit because they're so terrible, right? But also like massive amount of points to trust with Milwaukee, who is literally just one of like straight up the worst against the spread teams in the league. They're the 4th worst ATS team this season. Like, I'm not trusting Milwaukee having to win by 14 points. I don't care if they're playing 5-on-1 against me. I'd probably take them, but nonetheless, gonna lean towards Detroit here. Don't think it makes its way into a final play. Now, the total sitting at 244. I think it's a little bit too high just considering Detroit's part in this. Not to say their defense has been good, but they've been allowing right around that, 115-ish mark, right? Milwaukee's been actually scoring right around that 125-ish mark. So say Milwaukee goes and scores, 125. Does Detroit really come to play with 120 of their own? I don't really think so. So I'm going to lean towards the under in this one as well. Now, a player prop, and I don't love the odds here, so we'll keep an eye on it. But his odds for this stat are just, absolutely getting juiced. Jalen Duren here, double-double, yes, over 0.5 double-doubles, however you want to say it. Right now, we're seeing -180 on DraftKings as your best bet. We're not going to touch it if it stays there. I have seen late movement on this line in the last few Pistons games, so maybe we monitor it, but there's nothing else that really jumps off the page to me here. I do like his matchup potentially to get, at least 10 points and 10 rebounds, because those would be the stats, right? So keep an eye on the pinned comment, but not the sexiest of games. I don't envision us really, with a magnifying glass looking into this game much throughout the day. All right, next up, in a similar spot here, we have a huge underdog at home. Charlotte getting 11.5 points, taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. Total sitting at 229. Now, this one's a little bit different because I do think the Sixers, obviously, it's not groundbreaking news, are a better against spread team than the Bucks. However, this is a back-to-back spot. Joel Embiid's not on the injury report, but it wouldn't be, to my surprise if all of a sudden we see Joel Embiid not playing in this game. He played over 30 minutes last night. Now, he only played 30 minutes. 30 minutes, 50 seconds, so 31. So maybe they saved his legs a little bit, in that game against Orlando. But do they really need a lot from him in this game against Charlotte? Probably not. And he's obviously the gear that makes that thing turn. So be cautious if betting this one. I think you could jump on Sixers being like, wow, they really only have to win by 12. Like, they could do that easily against Charlotte. They just did it against, Orlando. It's a better team. They just beat Denver. Like, yeah, they're playing really good basketball. Charlotte is not. So I think that it might be something to stick away from, or at least monitor that Joel Embiid news. Now, total-wise, I think I want to look at the over here, but that's Joel Embiid dependent as well. So not to start the video off with 2 games that's like meh type of games, but that's kind of the way the slate's structured today. So I like the over here, but it's going to come down to whether or not we hear anything about Joel Embiid. It just wouldn't surprise me if he's sitting. There's nothing at the time of recording right now indicating that he will, other than the fact that he's Joel Embiid. Now, the one thing I'll say, and I think this is super important, to win awards and win MVP and, X, Y, and Z, there is that you need to play, I forget what it is, amount of games in the season, right? And Joel Embiid, after his injury, only has, I think it's 9 or 10 or maybe 8 to 10, I forget the actual number, games left that he can miss before, he's disqualified from those awards. So maybe he does get the go in this type of thing, but they're going to find ways to finagle that. Stars will be able to play a half and then sit and be like, oh, we played. So just wanted to throw that in there, but, it is what it is. In terms of player prop, I don't mind LaMelo Ball looking at his points plus assists or his assists in general. Now, his assist number is 6.5. It's getting back to where it was pre-injury, right? But he has hit this in 2 straight games here. In those 2 straight games, he's obviously getting plenty of potential assists. The guy has usage out the wazoo, 15 potential assists in his last 2 games. So I don't mind the spot for him. Do we make it a final play? We shall see. I mean, he's kind of the only one that I trust in a sense, betting on Charlotte as of late, just because he feels like he has his brand and his draft status and even his potential superstar status to live up to, whereas the rest of those guys are just young guys playing on a bad team. So that's the reason I'd look at him, but nothing major in terms of how confident I am in backing anyone on the Hornets and or LaMelo Ball. All right, guys, if you are on Prize Picks and not using the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer, what are you doing? I'll explain it super simple for you folks in the back, all right? Listen to this. If you can't hear me, I'll speak up so you can hear me in the back. Get on Daily Grind Fantasy, guys. What this does is it compares sportsbooks odds to Prize Picks odds, so you know the value you're getting when going into Prize Picks. Why would you put in a plus 110 play in Prize Picks if sportsbooks via that line already determined that is the unlikely outcome? Prize Picks does not care about odds, right? So start putting in these minus 130, minus 135, minus 140s into your slips, because other sportsbooks, bigger sportsbooks than Prize Picks, already determined that is the most likely outcome for this line. Again, guys, it is an absolute no-brainer. Check out the link in the pinned comment and go ahead and use Guy Boston as a code, GUYBOSTON. Get 25% off your first month. Head over there, guys. Check out Daily Grind Fantasy. Again, if you're on Prize Picks, Underdog, Sleeper, any of these DFS pick'em apps, you need to be trying Daily Grind Fantasy. It's not just for NBA. They have all the sports. You like esports? They got you. You like, college sports, NFL, NHL? They got you, guys. Go check it out. And what they have is this correlation tool, which is absolutely awesome. This is a track record of how the correlation tool has tracked. If you started this back in August, you'd be up 737 units, and what it does is pretty much just looks at game correlation, aka Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens, right? Well, let's open this up. CJ Stroud, they think his passing completions over 21, Lamar Jackson's passing completions over 18.5. Well, if those guys are going to have their completions over hit, right, then probably their 1 and 2 receivers are also going to hit their over, and all I have to do is plug this in. Super simple, guys. Go ahead and check it out. Again, that's the DGF Optimizer. That link is in the pinned comment. Was I loud enough for you people not listening? The fact that a bunch of people see this and you guys don't go check it out is crazy to me, because it is that good of a tool. Go check it out. That link in the pinned comment. Promo code GUYBOSTON. Got to use that promo code GUYBOSTON, spelling B-CHAMP. Now let's go ahead and get back to the games. All right, Wizards taking on the Spurs. I promise there's a few good games on today, but man, oh man, we're starting off with 2 massive, spreads, and now we're looking at what could be one of the worst games on the board, which not even what could be, probably is one of the worst games on the board here. We got the Wizards taking on the Spurs. Right now, Wizards favored by 2.5. Wembanyama looks like he is ruled out for this game. That being said, you guys know I'm a huge non-believer in any sort of reports for these NBA games as of late, but looks like he is not going to play. He's listed out as of right now. But in terms of what I like in this game, I guess I'll look at the Spurs just because they're getting points. Like, this is not a game in which I don't think really anyone should be touching. Spurs get it coming off of that loss, but they covered against Charlotte last night. Wizards coming off of a loss against the Knicks. They played decent. I guess you could say the Knicks played sort of poorly. Like, they only won by, was it 5 points or something like that? They're 12-point favorites. That was a couple nights back. I don't think the Wizards play good basketball 2 games in a row, in a sense. So, yeah, I'm going to lean towards the Spurs, but I don't think this one makes its way into the final place. Even from a total perspective here, I guess I like the under because I do think it's, 2 bad basketball teams, but you're not going to catch me touching that. Now, in terms of player props, nothing really jumps out to me at me at this moment, other than maybe some unders like Tyus Jones under points, rebounds, and assists. But again, all the matchups that you look at, these 2 teams are so bad defensively that you can look at any matchups and make a case for like, oh, I think he's actually gonna have a good game. But Tyus Jones' line right now is 22.5. He's hit the under in 8 of his last 10. He's hit the under in 65% of games this year. It's kind of why I'm looking at it. But again, I say that tongue in cheek. Like, I don't love much in this game. Next up, we have Cleveland taking on Atlanta. Atlanta at home here, getting 2.5 points. Total sitting at 231. I like Cleveland in this spot. Now, there are a couple injuries on the Atlanta side of things. Trae Young is questionable here with an illness. So not many player props out right now. Trae Young, I believe, missed last game, right? So it is a real illness. Let's see if he comes back today. But nonetheless, like, regardless, I like Cleveland in the spot. Even if Trae Young plays, this line probably gets smaller, right? So give me Cleveland here. They're playing good basketball. They've won 8 of their last 10. They've won 6 in a row. They've covered in 5 of those 6 wins. Now, they played Toronto twice. They played San Antonio. They played Brooklyn. They have not been battle-tested. So I want to make that super clear because I'm saying they're playing good basketball, which you can't really argue, but it's not like they're playing out of their shoes and playing against these good teams and beating them. Like, no. But on the flip side, Atlanta won. The worst against the spread team in the league, right? And at home, same thing. And they also haven't been totally battle tested. They're on a back-to-back here after a win against Miami. I could say the against the spread numbers on back-to-backs for Atlanta, but no matter how you dice up their against the spread stats, it looks terrible because they're so bad overall against the spread. So I'm just thinking that Cleveland comes in here and gets the job done. This is Atlanta, their game they have today, and then I think they have a day off, and then they travel to the West Coast. So they can't be looking forward to that, right? Whereas Cleveland, they have this game, just the beginning of a road trip for them, sort of, more or less like less of a unique spot, right? This is just the beginning of a road trip, whereas Atlanta has this one game at home, and then they got to think about traveling to the West Coast. So give me the Cleveland Cavs in this spot. Now, keep an eye on the injury report because I will say this line smells a little bit like a trap. Even with Trae Young on the injury report, makes it a little bit worse. So keep an eye out for things. Like, I don't think anyone, as of right now, looks like they're sitting for Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell's good to go. Jared Allen's good to go. Strus, Okoro, and Dean Wade also listed in the starting lineup. So as of right now, we can confidently, like what we're seeing from them. But keep an eye on the pinned comment. This definitely has a chance of being a final play. Total perspective here. I think I'm going to look at the over just because of that Atlanta defense. And, Cleveland, in terms of their offense, has been up and down. I know, like, last week I was like, they're playing pretty consistent from, dropping about 115, which I like that for them consistently. And they go and play Atlanta, they should get up into the 120s, right? But they scored 109 against Chicago. Now, Chicago's a super slow team. Okay, fine. Then they scored 135 against a Bucks team that was a shell of the Bucks team. And it's like, what type of offense are we looking at here? So a little tough to trust them, but I do think against bad defenses, Cleveland has no problem scoring. Against good defenses, I think they do have problems scoring. So unfortunately, that's just kind of how it's been. But nonetheless, I'll lean towards the over in this spot. Now, from a player prop perspective, again, we don't have any lines out right now. So keep an eye on the pinned comment for any updates here. It's just that Trae Young was just clearly kind of bogging up the player prop funnel here. So we'll keep an eye out, and if I like anything, we'll put in the pinned comment. But as of right now, Cavs and the over. All right, Knicks taking on Toronto. I like this spot for the Knicks, not because they're coming into it with the fire under their ass after, again, just barely beating Washington. Like, they still, in an NBA player's mind, I guess, a win's a win. But I do think that they've been playing good basketball. they haven't played against the best of teams. I mean, they did beat Philly, which is, impressive there. That was, a couple weeks ago. But Toronto doesn't seem like they're in a good place. We called it with the Bulls when they played, was that January 17th or 18th? And, they just traded Siakam. They have a bunch of draft picks. It seems like they're kind of foregoing this year in a sense. Not that these guys aren't going to try or anything like that, but they clearly have a lot going on, right? Now they have Barrett playing the Knicks, OG Anunoby playing the Raptors, kind of, first time since that trade happened. But I'm just going to lean towards the better team in this spot here, and it's New York. So -7, yeah, it's a decent number, but you know what? I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I think that they do match up fairly well here. I could see the Knicks winning this one by like 10 points, so I'm going to lean in that direction. Total sitting at 228. I'll take the over. I think the Knicks have no trouble really scoring against Toronto in this spot. Now, you could look at Toronto and be like, well, they haven't been allowing that many points, right? Like this looks like a defense that's been playing well, I guess, on paper. But overall, they really haven't been playing all that well. In their last 5 here, they're allowing the 10th most in terms of field goal percentage against, and you don't really love to see that. The Knicks do shoot a lot of threes over the last 5 here. The Knicks have shot the 6th most threes in the NBA, not for a good percentage, but Toronto struggles with preventing teams from making threes. So if the Knicks get somehow hot from behind the arc, I think this game is over. And Toronto just allowing just under 120 per game. The Knicks offense, you'd like to see a little more out of them, but as the game progresses, they do get better and better. This is the team that top 5 team in fourth quarter scoring over the last 5 games. So if this is a game that's kind of close to that total number, I do think as the game progresses, even if the Knicks slow it down and play with a slow pace, I do think they're efficient enough to drop some late buckets in here. So I'll go ahead and lean towards the over. Now, one of the plays I do like in this game is going to be Scotty Barnes here, under 7.5 rebounds. Last couple games here, so obviously post the Siakam trade, he's only averaging 12 rebound chances, and he's grabbing 50% of those rebounds. Now he's going up against Joel Embiid, who last time they played here, which was just about a month and a half ago on December 11th, he held him to 6 rebounds in 38 minutes. Did I say Joel Embiid? Julius Randle, going up against Julius Randle, who obviously that power forward position is going to be a really physical and tough guy to kind of box out and get rebounds over. So I think when it comes to rebounding, Scotty Barnes, good rebounder, but it's going to be sort of a situation where it's like Julius Randle, anything you could do, I could do better. So I'll take the under here, Scotty Barnes. It's -120 right now over on DraftKings. This is actually marked at -145, -142 over on Caesar. So some value there as well when it comes to EV for that Scotty Barnes under. Bulls taking on Memphis. This is a weird one because a lot of signs pointed to being like, all right, the Bulls bounce back, or not bounce back. The Bulls continue to win as they beat Toronto last. Let's play some good basketball, but I don't really trust them here. I think that this is a lot of points to be laying. Now, if this was like a 1.5 point spread or something like that, yeah, you'd probably find me leaning towards the Bulls. So this isn't the most confident lean towards Memphis whatsoever. And I know that they're not playing the best of basketball. But 7.5 points against the Bulls, I think that they can cover that, right? Like they have struggled with injuries, but they've beaten LA, they've beaten Phoenix, they've beaten Golden State recently. Like the Bulls are kind of in the same ballpark in terms of teams. Now, yes, Memphis is on the road. I get that, but it doesn't really scare me to get 7.5 points. So do we have the cojones to make this a final play? We shall see. Do we take a grizzly bear in a fight over a bull? Who knows? But I do think 7.5 points is too much to lay as the Bulls. So I think that, by default, I'm looking at Memphis. Now, this is probably going to be a low-scoring game just based on the total, too, right? And you look at both of these teams. Last 10 here, the Bulls, obviously a very slow team. Memphis right there with them, honestly. Now, Memphis can, which is weird. Memphis kind of goes back and forth between being a fast-paced team and a slow-paced team. They're kind of a chameleon, I guess, in terms of how they mesh with other teams. So right now, last 10, they're 13th in pace. But if you look at some of these recent games, right, 106 to 94 against the Knicks, that's within the last 10. 118 to 103 against Minnesota, that's within the last 10. But then you have 127 to 113, that's in the last 10. 121 to 115, 128 to 119. So this Memphis team, you don't really know what you're getting. It's a box of chocolates. But like I said, they kind of mesh with and chameleonize, if that's even a word, to what the team they're playing. And Chicago likes to play slow. So even though this is a 217 number and it's super low, I'm still looking at the under here. But then it is a super, super low number. Also, no player props in this game that I'm really, really considering. Next up, we have Houston taking on Utah. Utah coming off of that loss against OKC, which the comment section was flooded with people being like, you're crazy for taking OKC. OKC takes the win, okay? Now, that doesn't mean I don't like Utah, right? I even said in that pick, I was like, if someone likes Utah, I understand it. I'm not going to talk you off of it. And I like Utah again here. Now, you're going to say, Utah stinks on the road and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, they have had their struggles on the road, but that was when they weren't very healthy, and that was pre-starting lineup change, right? This is a different team. They're playing really good, and they've played good basketball on the road as of late as well. So give me Utah in this spot, getting 2.5 points. I'll take it. Total sitting at 234. I don't have much of a feel for this total. I would lean towards the over if I think Utah is going to be in this game, because that means they push the tempo and push the pace. Then in terms of a player prop, I have to look at Colin Sexton over 19.5 points again, right? Like, it's a little weird that, yes, the books aren't moving this line, but he's had 30 points in 2 straight games, 27, 30, and 31 in his last 3. We cashed that over last time, and yes, it's bound to fall off, and honestly, this matchup could be the game in which the wheels kind of come undone. I wouldn't even be surprised. But Houston, you think of them as a good guard defense over the last 7 games, allowing the 3rd most points to the shooting guard position. Colin Sexton playing shooting guard just seems like it matches up. Again, we're going to ride this until it gets to, 20.5 or something like that. If this stays sub 20, I'm going to be looking at Colin Sexton a lot here. Last 2 games, 17 shot attempts, 19 shot attempts. You got to give the kid credit. He's shooting really well from the field, over 50%, 45% from 3. Like, he's really found a rhythm here, and I'm not going to be the one to bet against him in this spot. We're going to keep betting on him until he fails us. So Colin Sexton over 19.5 points. Another spot, and this one just kind of like jumps out as like, oh, it could happen so easily. John Collins over 0.5 assists. So he's hit this in 10 straight games, right? He's hit it in, I guess, 65% of his last 20, 59 of his games this season. And you're just looking for 1 assist. Like, we could do that, but it could be stupid. We could be watching all game long, and it's like, oh my God, 0, 0, 0. So we'll see. But I don't mind John Collins over 0.5 assists, just because it is like such a doable line, right? So keep an eye on the pinned comment. Both those player props actually have a chance of being a final play, which is kind of crazy. All right, Minnesota taking on OKC. This is probably going to be one of the better games on the slate right now. Minnesota sitting at home at -3, total sitting at 229. I went back and forth on this one, and it's tough to bet against the rumbling Covering Thunder. I get it. But Minnesota at home here, I really can't keep my eye off of. I like their spot. They're 17-2 straight up at home this season, 12-7 against the spread. And this is a Thunder team that, yes, they're a great against the spread team. Obviously, the best in the league. I think they're tied with Philadelphia and maybe Orlando. But nonetheless, on the road is where they do kind of struggle. Now, when I say struggle, it's not really a struggle, right? It's still a good team, but they're just kind of middle of the pack when it comes to covering on the road here. So I lose my faith a little bit in them on the road, and this line comes in at -3. And Minnesota, is playing good basketball. I think the books know what they're doing here, so we're trusting that. I'm going to be looking at Minnesota -3, but it's going to be tough to pull the trigger on that as a final play, just because it's like this Thunder team. Every time you second guess them, it's like, no, we're good. We're not just a fad. We're not just a young team. We're good. And they are good. So we'll see if that becomes a final play, but that's the way that I'm leaning right now. Total sitting at 229. I like the over in this spot. I've been kind of singing the same song about this I keep saying Memphis, this Minnesota defense, that it's a good defense, but it's not as like locked in and tight as it was in the beginning of the year. And you're looking at OKC coming to town now. It's like OKC is going to push the tempo and score a lot of points, right? So give me the over 229 in this spot. I just think Minnesota makes stops when it counts, but they score their fair share in this game as well. From a player prop perspective, I hate to end it with a, nothing, really jumps out at me in this spot. I don't mind Jalen Williams over 20.5 points plus rebounds, but nothing really is kind of irking me to make a play here. Maybe Chet Holmgren's under in points, rebounds, and assists, because I do think no matter if he's getting the Karl-Anthony Towns or the Rudy matchup, I think it could be kind of a tough spot for him down low. So maybe we look at Chet Holmgren, but I could also be talked into Chet Holmgren's over in threes made, because he's going to be playing on the perimeter a little bit more. So some that we could roll with here. It's just nothing that like jumps off the page to me right now. He's played Minnesota twice this season, and he's hit 3 threes, Chet Holmgren, in both of those games. So again, it could be a spot in which we like that. But yeah, nothing jumps off the page. But if I had to rank those player props, I'd say probably Chet Holmgren's threes. I don't love the unders taking on him because he is a good player. And then, so we go Chet Holmgren's threes, Jalen Williams points and rebounds, and then Holmgren's under PRA. But honestly, out of those, one of those probably makes its way to the final play. So keep an eye on the pinned comment, guys. And that is all we have. That is a wrap for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. And yeah, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.